My name is Vivian. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, NODEM, for inviting. And the past 2 days conference has been very fruitful. I go home every day and try to revise and make my presentation better. And this is much more like city building. It's very adaptable, changing, and constantly getting better. So my research partner Emily and I met in grad school in Columbia, and we were very interested in how the city can tell the story of the people. She cannot make it today, but she sends a regard. What I'm about to say is nothing new, but I certainly hope that it will make us rethink the intangible heritage of public space making in the city. And the city itself can become the means and the tool in the presentation of heritage. And I would first illustrate the issue, indicate a theory, and propose some responses, imaginary proposals by two naive urban designers. So I'd like to begin my presentation with a question to the audience. What is a memorable place in the past that makes become a part of you? And you don't have to answer me, just think about it. But I'd like to share mine. For me, growing up in Hong Kong, in the Western District, Central Street has always been a part of me. It's a very steep street during the 80s, which connects the hills to the harbor. So it's a very Hong Kong street, and both sides is filled with market stalls. And I go to school every day. I would pass by the park, so it's become a very important part of me. And you most likely would agree that the streets and public spaces of cities are where you most strongly feel the space and its people. This is from Xinjiang. And this is what urban design is about. And it is not necessarily geared towards pursuing a prescriptive physical solution, planning cities from the top down, like the popular game SimCity, where you control everything, or making your own world in Dubai. But it's more about generate creative and integrated placemaking in the public realm that considers various contextual and specific dimensions in trying to capture, reinforce the spirit of place. Like in Taiwan, they actually start a very grassroots community planning without any architects or urban designers, and believing that people know best. So how do we make our cities? I'm very cautious about categorizing city making, but if to simplify it, coining geographer and urban theorist Henri, sorry, my French is terrible. Henri is about representation of space versus the spatial practice. So in representation of space, it's more like a cosmetic space making, which is a cosmetic version of urban life, like the IFC mall. It's a carefully planned and purposefully circulation. It's representation of urban streets. They're often more chaotic and less controlled. So, but the benefit of doing so is that you could have a very controlled environment and top-down planning that enables the city to build higher, bigger, faster, almost like producing a formula and makes copies around the city. So fast sometimes that we can't wait for people to move out to build the roads around it. So globalized Asian cities bring with it introduction of uniformity and homogeneity at the expense of spontaneity and diversity, which are more traditional characters of Asian urbanism. Cities sometimes become indistinguishable. Anybody guess where this is? It's in China somewhere. But it's Inner Mongolia. It's actually called a ghost city because there's nobody living, and for some reason they're still building high-rises. So there's some illustration to how fast our Asian cities are developing. In Dubai, in 30 years, from scratch to all these high-rises. and also most famously Shanghai. And even, so this is the twisting tower in the Puxi area. And I took a trip a few years ago to just kind of examine what's the progress in the West. This is Xinjiang, Kashi, which is a very important town in the historic Silk Road. And right now there is a huge ambition of making it the Shanghai of the West. It became a trading port between the Middle East, Pakistan, and China. So there's very interesting development going on in here. And also, there is the fast-paced Asia development urban design model has made urban design a tool to make the best global city competing for the best resources. In this case, all these cities in Zhuhai forms a mega city which can almost beat up other cities and compete for resources and power. So on the other hand, spatial practice are informal and adaptive response to changing needs and the temporary requirements that best meets the immediacy of here and now, and reflects an intangible realm of use. The public space is shared by a multiplicity of uses and interests. And this process takes time to build layers upon layers, and it's constantly evolving. But these areas are a bit old, messy, and a lack of a clear and easy way to assess its value. These districts are most vulnerable in the fast-growing Asian city. So facing incredible pressure to have a slick, clean city, suppose obsolescence and resumption, clearance and redevelopment become the way to repurpose these older districts, rather than enhancing the usability and attractiveness of the older built fabric in meeting the needs of the city and sustaining the character, because it's just simply takes too long and we have no time to waste. So some case study. Thus, the intangible heritage and stories of the city making would be lost along with disappearance of these older districts. Most importantly with it is the method of how many intangible heritage being passed down, cross-pollinate, and recreate. Urban redevelopment strategy involved replacing a vibrant mix of uses and activities by single-use complex. One of the most well-known was the Beijing Olympics, where 1/3 of its population is demolished to make way for infrastructure to support the Olympics. And another character is diversity, variety, and traditional street values are replaced by standardized and anonymous construction, like in Dharavi, Mumbai, master plan renewal. This was a studio project that Emily and I was involved while doing our graduate studies. That you might be familiar with this location because this is the backdrop for Slumdog Millionaire. Actually, it's actually not a slum. Many of its residents is middle class upper. They were educated, and it's actually more complicated that it's a slum. They have a very high, actually their economy, how they move up in class is through these public space that they all share. They reinforce this heritage and able to pass down from generation to generation. This would be a map of one of the chawls that we study, where they utilize these two plazas within their chawls for different activities such as candid display of humor, interaction, and also bread making and craft making. This is the community that lives in this chawl. However, as Dharavi is seen as a sore spot for the city to become, for Mumbai to become the metropolitan, a clean street and with glassy towers, urban renewal has relocated its occupants to the high-rise towers. For some reason, high-rise towers is seen as more higher density, but if you really do the calculation, sometimes it's lower because a lot of these, they're not sharing a lot of the public spaces. So these towers remove the occupants from the street and their plaza, and taking their ability for livelihood, such as basket weaving, or bread making, which you need a bigger, more open space. What is happening is people actually selling these flats and move back to the slum because they desire to live there more than high-rise tower with plumbing. So this is kind of interesting to see the value. So, and also another character that our city is changing is the urban richness created by contrasting use and scale is replaced by uniformity, such as the Center Street that I told you about. 30 years ago, it's really bustling with activities, but now they basically move all the stalls into the indoor markets, and they're actually installing people movers, which makes this street more like a thoroughfare for people to walk around. You see that there's not many people want to walk. But it's where these leftover spaces that enable incredible energy and urban stories can come alive. And the traditional definition of mixed use is to achieve the right balance of residents and commercial activities in order to sustain a community. But the new definition seems like that you would just have high-rise towers on top of a mall. So modern towers require a large floor plates, so that's why you have a lot of these streetscapes dedicating to vents for basement or for the indoor mall, AC units, and you become, you lost the streetscape. These are the types of renderings in our office that I see every day. And I noticed a trend that there is these huge elevated people walkway that separates you from the car. But so then you're actually removed from the street, and it's actually being built. Actually, it's being built and will be building all across Asia, which is sort of a missed opportunity because you're really taking away the street life from the street. So this is sort of the theory that we like to propose is first we shape the city and it shapes us. It's a famous saying by the Danish urban designer Jan Gehl, who is shaping cities, who's helping to facilitate a lot of the city development in the world. So I like to illustrate how our cities has become by telling you a story of two trees. So on the left, this is the trees located in Atmoti. This is a tree that was preserved when Swire Group, it's a development, developed the land on this hillside back of Atmoti for the new Pacific Place 30 years ago. And this street was once on the top of the hill and had very significant meaning to the community who was living in the area. And they asked the developer to preserve it. And the developer agreed, and it cost more than 20 million Hong Kong dollars 30 years ago to preserve it because they had to build the structure to support it in the soil. But this tree is still standing here today. And it's the most expensive tree in Hong Kong, maybe Asia. And on the right, which is a missing tree, is what happens here just recently. The story is that there's a few trees in Chaiwan district. The elders in the community really like the leaves and want to brew tea with it and believe that it's actually very helpful to the health. And the authority warned them not to harvest the leaf, and they didn't listen. So they ended up chopping the trees down. So this kind of illustrates the changing attitude of our cities that we almost just want to achieve high efficiency and want to just quickly move on. So the point is that why I'm here in this NODEM is that the argument is not about preserving and not preserving, but it's about a balance of method of placemaking. And the process could be made more sustainable in the long term. It involves the stable parts of the older area and around nodes of activities that would anchor new developments. In this regard, plays that accommodate constant cycles of change can mean more to the public than the impact of the monumental building. So curators and museum directors can be a very critical part of such movement and process to retell and remind us of the forgotten story of how our space is made in the city, It's an intangible heritage that we all share. It's about celebrating and retelling the placemaking story once again, enabling long-term transformations of the neighborhood and promote social and spatial diversity, making people aware that these are not just leftover spaces. At the end, we're all urban designers. So we have some quick proposal that we'd like to share. Is by placemaking by storytelling. So these are some of the famous or some really nice work done by artists that engage the city fabric, whether it's a street, reenacting the lost streetscape of the vendors, or even engaging a building. This project is in Tijuana, Mexico. It's about retelling the story with projection onto the building itself, kind of engaging the city fabric. So we were thinking, instead of shooting laser beams around at night, maybe you could have some projections where each of these towers can become characters telling a story of our city. And these proposals are applicable to any cities in the world. It could be in Tokyo or Seoul. And also, since AR, augmented reality, is so hot right now, so we were thinking maybe you could combine with GIS, where you actually walk on the streets such as this, and you realize that why is it such an this alleyway? Only when you put your mobile device that you see that once, only 20 years ago, it was a vibrant street selling bird cages and birds products. This is a street in Wanchai. Or you could embed heritage in everyday urban life, such as when you're riding the MTR while you're waiting, instead of looking at weight loss ads. You could kind of have an engagement on the screen of the class, or something that tells what is above, because you're 40 meters below. And the story of above can be told while you're waiting for your train. So I'd like to end the story of our city with relevant, delicious way of Hong Kong cuisine. Our city sometimes is more like dim sum, where all of these dishes are kind of, isolated, but they're delicious in every way, but they're isolated. It's okay, but maybe sometimes you want to try where it's layers of food on top of each other, and the magic of this food is about the percolating juices that from the top layer to the bottom, and we all enjoy. At the end, it's a big mess, but it's really good. So you could have both. You shouldn't have one. So thank you.